This is David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver. I'm here with John T today as the next episode of the Problem Solver. I'm here with a special guest, Alex Hakeem, who is the sleep doctor out of LA, Sleep Doc LA. Alex, thanks for showing up today and talking to us about sleeping things.
Thank you so much for having me.
We need help.
We need help. That's it. So Alex actually, he flew in specifically today to actually meet with you because I was mentioning you were having a lot of sleep problems.
Oh, really? Yeah, I do.
So
how do you know I have sleep problems?
You told me before that you had some sleeping issues.
No, I have no sleep issues.
No sleep issues?
Oh, yeah, no, not at all. I knock out pretty
Alex,
easily.
tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how did you get involved in being a sleep doctor as well?
Let me ask you something, though. Is there a name for a sleep doctor?
No, it's a sleep
medical
specialist or sleep doctor. It doesn't have any special name like pulmonologist for lungs. But yeah, although a lot of pulmonologists do practice sleep.
Okay.
But I think that's actually a good place to start because a lot of people are clinicians, psychologists, very rarely are there a scientific basis trained patient-doctor relationship. A lot of it is like more clinical psychologist type of people that work with patients. Mm-hmm. And so, I wanted to add the sophistication and research and background and tools that a physician would have into this industry.
Okay. So tell us exactly what you do then.
I went very doctorish.
I went to medical school. I am an internal medicine doctor, trained or did residency. I did sleep medicine fellowship, pulmonary, and critical care fellowship. Okay. And, my whole life I was taught that a doctor's job, his core function is to save lives. And as an ICU doctor, I saw how so many people were so far advanced, their conditions were so deteriorated by the time I got to them that I recognized so many things that could have been alleviated much earlier in their life with intervention, preventative care. And one of the most potent and powerful ways that you can do preventative health is by addressing sleep. And specifically from a medical perspective, because we always hear about all of these cognitive behavioral things that people do for sleep, and there's all sorts of websites about, the temperature of your room, what you should eat before you go to bed. Mm-hmm. And as a physician, what I've been seeing are people with catastrophic respiratory problems at night, real physical problems. Their oxygen is dropping precipitously at night. Their sleep stages are aborted because they're not able to achieve deep sleep. Mm-hmm. And it's costing them their lives. It's causing high blood pressure during the day. It's causing difficulty focusing, so cognitive behavioral issues during the day with poor memory, poor coordination. And then it's, unfortunately, 20, 30 years of that, it's cumulatively adding into high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, and all sorts of things that can cause premature aging.
I see. So you treat sleep apnea, right? I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a couple guys that I dated that had that, and they had that big machine on their face, right, or whatever, the mask. Yeah. I'm a deep sleeper. I really am. But, just to have someone that looks like Darth Vader next to you, and I was like, oh, man.
It's funny, as I was talking to Alex before we got here, I I figured there'd be some interesting stories that you would have in regards to sleep. So this was probably one of them. So here's a good question for you, being a female. And actually, my father wears that mask, and my brother has the mask, which we'll talk about. My question to you is, when you dated someone, did they ever, when you lay next to the guy and you're dating, did he put the mask on for sleeping?
Yeah.
So I think he brought this up before because it's not a sexy thing to put on this Darth Vader, mask. How the first time? I'm sure you had multiple experiences with multiple men that
just one,
had the
actually.
mask. Just one. Okay, so what happened? Did they tell you about it first?
Yeah. Well, yes. Briefly, but actually, I just experienced it when they put it on. But
did they tell you first, by the way, if I go to sleep, I'm putting on this Darth Vader mask?
Yeah. But to actually witness it and see it and to experience it is very different from when someone tells you.
But doesn't it turn off the whole vibe once the guy puts on that mask?
Well, we're not doing anything more than sleeping after he puts on that mask. Okay. That'd be kind of interesting, though. I think I'll try that next.
So, but it wasn't weird.
Yeah,
because it looks weird, right?
Oh, it's totally weird.
I feel bad because my dad wears it now. Brian's married 50 years. My brother's married, 30, 40 years, who knows what.
It's weird, and it's really hard to sleep if you're kind of a light sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me, obviously, when I'm really tired, I pass out anyways. But at first, it's tough. So I'm like, oh man. So let me just get on my side, and you go ahead and get your mask on.
But it wasn't like a turnoff at the end.
No.
It was okay.
Yeah, no.
I would feel awkward with it.
If you're attracted to someone, that won't turn you off.
Okay, that's a good thing.
If you're not,
that's a good thing. You had a story with that, right?
In your life. Yeah.
Did you have a story where someone was saying like, if I'm dating someone, how do I bring up this mask situation?
Yeah, well,
how do you address that with your clients?
One of the first surprises that, I went into this with my dad as an archetypical patient for me, which is like a 80-plus-year-old person with health problems. And a lot of young people between the ages of 18 and 35 have been contacting me with sleep issues, and I've been diagnosing them with respiratory problems. And the question for me is always, how aggressive do you want to be to treat sleep apnea? If you see somebody who's failing or flunking in college because they're not able to have attention during the day, they're forgetful. In terms of attractiveness, you meet somebody who is a scatterbrain, who's clumsy, who is anxious, because a lot of mental health issues kind of derive its origin from sleep. When you see that, I have to make a very passionate story to the patient about what the next 30 years of their life would look like if they don't choose the right treatment. Yeah. So it's easy to treat, it's easy to diagnose sleep apnea. It's hard to treat because a lot of us, we look at the mask and we get scared of it. We think it means that they're on a ventilator. They think it means that there's something seriously wrong. And I try to tell my patients, hey, I know it looks very invasive and it looks scary and it's a machine and you think you have to use it every night, otherwise you're going to die. Like its implications are very scary, but it's a luxury item. Because when you wake up and you feel refreshed, it's one of the most rewarding things that you can experience. And that's the thing that I want to do for people. When you're positive and you're energetic, you can attract people better, including in business or in relationships. And you just feel more present. It's a great lifestyle choice when you're sleeping well.
So with the machine, do you have to change your lifestyle also for the machine to work correctly, or does the machine actually do that for you?
Well, I mean, that's a complicated question because there's some things in lifestyle, like, for instance, I use it. I'm patient zero in my practice, and a lot of the things that I developed, I learned through experimenting with myself. I considered myself a night owl. I would procrastinate a lot. I didn't want to go to bed a lot. Once I started using CPAP, I was able to fall asleep much faster, and I realized I was looking forward to going to bed. So I think my sleep discipline improved because the physiologic issues were taken care of. And that was a big realization for me because I have a lot of patients that are like, well, I don't really like to go to bed. I'm a night owl. I'm this and that. Yeah. And then when you actually start getting good quality of sleep, it's different. It's like the body knows that they're experiencing trauma at night, and it makes them dread going to bed.
Yeah, the guy that I was seeing that was using it, he said he wouldn't go to bed until like 3 or 4 a.m. And I'm like, but what time do you wake up? He's like 6 or 7. I'm like, 2-3 hours? I don't think that's enough. And that's even using the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
maybe he was a new user or he's in flux, maybe.
He's been for a while, apparently. Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, sleep discipline, that's a big part of it, especially with young people. It's like trying to have discipline about what time you go to bed so that you don't want to pass out before putting the machine on if you have sleep apnea. And if it's not about sleep apnea, it's just about sleep discipline. That's one of the hardest things to do, especially with young people where technology is ubiquitous and you take it into the bed with you, phones, TVs, that type of thing.
Right. Do you see it more in men that have, trouble sleeping or women, or what's the percentage?
From a respiratory standpoint, anatomically, men seem to be more predisposed.
Okay.
So, thicker, soft palates, bigger tongues. So you do see that, but there are definitely women and young women. The reason I keep saying young is because, it's been skewing these last few months. Like I've literally gone to college campuses and there's one patient of mine that is about to get kicked out of school because she's failing. And so there are plenty of female examples of this. And none of these people, by the way, are obese. Okay. That's the other thing that people don't realize. None of these patients are obese.
True.
But a lot of them do have family history. If you say, okay, your parents have snoring issues or your sibling has sleep issues, because I do think anatomy does play a role.
Got it. So hereditary too.
How many hours?
Big tongue. That's good.
How many hours is the normal sleep that you're supposed to get?
8?
There is an inflection point where if you get too much sleep, so, they say like up to 7.5, and then it starts to get diminishing returns, where you have higher long-term morbidity, mortality if you're sleeping too much or if you're sleeping too little. Yeah, believe it or not.
What? Okay, what's the effects of that, of sleeping too much?
How many hours do you sleep? Since it seems to be
10
a
to
concern.
12.
Do you really sleep that long?
10 minimum.
10 to 12
That's
hours?
a lot of hours.
Well, I do have anemia.
Are you? Oh,
Yeah.
well, are you asleep right now?
I am. I'm a walking sleep. Walking
You say because you
sleeper.
don't have enough iron.
Yes.
And she gets tired more
True.
easily.
But that's why I'm 60 and I look like this, right?
You're
Do you
sleeping
think I
a
look
lot.
pretty good? Okay.
10 to 12. So when people sleep that long, I start to ask questions about, pertaining to the breathing, because
Yeah.
sleep efficiency is you get a big hit on your quality of sleep when you're having respiratory issues.
Okay.
And I sound like a broken record because I keep talking about breathing, breathing, breathing. And everyone wants to talk, if you go on Twitter and you go on all of these social media platforms, about sleep environment, about certain additives and certain vitamins and certain things that are sleep promoting and sleep enhancing. And I agree that those things are important. But every time I look, especially when there's somebody who's had bad insomnia or really strange sleep issues, every time I put a magnifying glass on it, there's something physiologic happening almost every time. And that's
What's
the
my
part.
issue?
Yeah. Well, I wonder
Diagnose me.
if you're not getting enough deep sleep and REM, then maybe you feel the need to sleep longer. Maybe you need so much more sleep to get all of your sleep needs taken care of. And for somebody like me who always had sleep problems, once I started using CPAP, I was able to take care of morning activities with confidence.
Right.
You just don't want to wake up if you haven't achieved all the quality deep sleep and REM that your body is desiring.
But you're saying you're always low in iron, right? And you always try to get iron from time to time. So do you believe it's because of low iron?
Maybe now, but I've been a sleeper since I was young.
So you've always slept this long.
I've always slept pretty long, even when I was younger. So, and I was never a morning person anyways. So it's normal to me.
There are some weird things about with low iron, like kicking of the limbs at night that can wake people up. Like there's something called periodic limb movement disorder, where it's the legs constantly twitch or kick at night. And low iron is a big risk factor for that.
Is that why I sleep alone? I kicked
Are you
everyone in my
kicking
bed.
anybody?
It would be interesting if you went to, and you could explain how that works, where you go to a facility where you get watched. Maybe she's kicking, maybe she's moving her body. Have you ever videotaped? You told me that,
I
right?
have.
What happened? You told me
I've
that
got
once.
a lot of videotapes. Yeah,
sure you
yeah. So
Of you sleeping?
Yeah,
What kinds of things?
They have
Why?
that. Just kidding.
It's Vegas.
They also have that app
He's
where
not used to
you
Vegas.
can record yourself right during sleep, and
I understand
it'll
that.
tell you if you made a noise at like 2:20. You pooted. 2:20. You're mumbling something. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
What did it show?
I don't do too much. Obviously, yeah, I really don't. I mean, I think I made 3 or 4 sounds in the night. I have woken up though.
What were
to
the sounds?
Just like body sounds.
We have to beep,
Oh, Dave.
beep. We have to beep this one out. We can't let your future husband know what kind of sounds you're making. So we
Well,
have to
he's going to know if he's laying right next to me.
Well, maybe he's a deep sleeper. He's sleeping probably wearing the mask. He won't
Maybe.
know about your noises.
That's true. That's true.
How does that work? Like for someone like her, it would be interesting. Like if you have to, right? How does it work? Even my father, he slept overnight at a facility to watch. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, these gadgets are really helpful to get some objective sense of what your sleep is. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of consumer-grade devices that can be very valuable when they detect an abnormality. Sometimes they give people a false sense of security. But as a guinea pig over many years, even I think I had a sleep study in a sleep lab over 10 years ago. It's like wearing a printer or a big contraption on your chest strapped on. It's very hard to get good quality sleep in a sleep lab. So one of the things that I really focused on with my practice is getting the technology and tools so that people can do this at their own home. so that people can get sleep tested, with a FDA certified, legitimate device, but and still do it in the comfort of their own home, so they can achieve all the body positions and the deep sleep that they would normally do. Yeah.
So how does that work now? So you're more of a concierge sleep doctor, where you go to someone's home. So you would go to her house, you would just watch her sleep for 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to be there. Why does this always happen to me? I don't know why. I do not have to. Is there a camera I can look at? I do not have to be at someone's home when they sleep for the sleep test.
Most people ask that?
Yeah, everybody has that.
So the machine does that, or?
Yeah, the machine, the device I use actually gets transmitted the data through your phone to me. And I use that data. I get it next day, like a Christmas gift in the morning, like, hey, congratulations, you got a new sleep study to review. And, it's always like a shocking surprise to see what happens. Is
it sound or video, or what is it?
It's so it does a few things. So pulse oximetry, which is looking at your oxygen in real time, your heart rate in real time. You're looking at chest wall movement. So if somebody's having respiratory disturbances, you can see it in the movement of their chest. I'm looking at stress response. So when somebody has a fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system response in response to something that really startled them or bothered them at night, it causes constriction of the fingertips, and I can even pick that up on these devices, or movement of the body. So if you're kicking your leg and you're flailing strong enough that it's ricocheting into your arms, I might be able to pick that up on that device, or I can add extra sensors for limbs.
Oh, okay. So it's movements. Do you put something on the body before you go to bed?
Yeah, it's like a watch, it's a finger probe, it's a chest probe.
Okay.
The one thing I didn't mention, which is interesting, is I didn't mention anything on the face. And we find that it's much easier, the less that's tethering somebody down, the better. So, and if you go into a sleep lab, they'll put scalp electrodes, they'll put a bunch of sensors on every limb. And we feel like those things are going to restrict people from getting normal sleep. It definitely restricted me, and I feel like I'm a very good guinea pig for a lot of these things that my patients go through.
Interesting. Too bad there's no visual. You can't see when the aliens actually come and abduct you or something like that.
She wants the actual visual. Can you add visual?
Well, you can actually see exactly when somebody goes into REM stage. You know when they're dreaming.
Yeah.
And you can see if it's a particularly stressful dream. You can interpret it any way you want. Is it a nightmare or whatever?
Interesting. I dream a lot. Vivid dreams almost every night too.
Okay.
So.
Well, one of the interesting things, just physiologically, is I think it's useful for the listeners to know about it is this idea of REM. Everyone thinks of REM as like your most restful or your deepest stage of sleep, which is not totally true. It's actually the most energy-intensive stage of sleep. Your brain is active because you're dreaming. Your heart rate is going up and down. You're having a lot of that sympathetic or fight or flight nervous system activation. But the other thing that it's known for is for very low muscle tone. So when you have low muscle tone, things like your upper airway tends to collapse. People have more stress because they can't breathe during REM. And some people have like aborted REM because of breathing issues. Why I bring this up is it can actually really make nightmares more vivid. It can contribute to anxiety in that way if there's something that you're really deliberating over and you're having recurrent dreams about. When you're having stress response during those dreams that is like over and above, and what I mean by that is like you'll see heart rates consistently go from 50s to like 110s, 120s during their dreams because of their breathing. It's like throwing gasoline on a nightmare, It really fuels that fire. So people can tend to have either very, very vivid dreams, waking up a lot during their nightmares, or some people don't even get dreams when they have really bad breathing at night. Imagine someone's sleep apnea is so bad as they approach REM, they abort. They're not able to attain very much REM.
Right.
And so I have people tell me, like, I haven't had a dream for 10 years. It's really strange. And then you treat them, and then they have nothing but dreams, like, all night long.
Interesting.
There's this idea called REM rebound, where when you restore the breathing at night, you just start getting a lot of REM. It's like your body was overdue for the amount of REM.
Deprivation of the deeper REM. Isn't that right? It's like a whole science.
Isn't this fascinating?
It is. I love it. It is fascinating. I do wake up on occasion because I stop breathing, and that happens when I'm cold. So I'll put my blanket over my head. And why are you
I
laughing?
think you say like a plastic bag.
I put a plastic bag over my head. Retard.
I'm like, what are you going to say? Like, I can only imagine what you're saying.
No, seriously.
You're like,
I
stop breathing.
I put my blanket
How
over
do
my
you
head.
stop breathing?
I don't know. Maybe I start suffocating myself underneath the blanket. And
That
then
could be a whole other problem.
and then I would wake up and go, like
We don't need a sleep doctor for that. We need a therapist.
Well, there's a lot of weird
I don't think I would
behaviors.
know. You just said that you stopped. I wouldn't know in my own sleep that if I just stopped
I
breathing.
did because I was fighting for air. That's when I wake up and then
She definitely
push.
seems like she needs like a sleep mask, right?
Yeah.
That right?
Like one of the weird things that I noticed with myself and some of my patients is like I kind of jammed my face into the pillow and like you said, you kind of like smother your face.
Right.
And I didn't really think much of it, but I think what I was doing, at least in my case, I was trying to stabilize my jaw by putting my jaw into the pillow. And one of the learned behaviors with sleep apnea, some people only have sleep apnea when the jaw drops. Because when the jaw drops, it pushes the tongue backwards.
Okay.
So I think what I was doing was trying to stabilize the jaw. That's why I was in such a weird position.
So
all night.
psychologically, you kind of
Yeah.
felt comfortable that way. So you kind of,
Yeah.
your body just
Yeah.
went to that direction.
And this is a theme where people just have no idea what they're doing at night, why they're doing it. Some people think they're waking up 3 times a night to go to the bathroom, and it's really just like horrific breathing at night. And so that's one of the hallmarks of my practice is if you don't know what's happening, something weird is going on, get objective data.
Right.
That's the number one principle, and objective data is my friend. It really guides me for everything that I do. And I sit the patient down. I show them, every moment of their night, and that way, it brings that to the forefront. Because I have a lot of patients who are like very smart people. They know everything that there is to know and research about sleep. They've been Googling all night, late night hours. Some of them are doctors. They even have like a sleep coach as a patient. And you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't know what you're doing when you're unconscious, which is by the definition of the word, you're unconscious of it, then you can't solve it.
Right.
You can't solve it unless you measure it.
But it changes every night too, right? It could. Or
It
is it the
could,
same?
but it doesn't change that much.
Oh, okay, so
It
it's
shouldn't change
repetitive.
that much
No,
unless you have a problem.
Usually one night's worth of study is all I need.
Interesting.
Is
okay.
this program that you use, is it specific to your practice, or is this an app or a program that regular people could use to give an assessment of their sleeping?
Yeah, I don't use a consumer level device, and it does take some nuance. Like I used to give the devices out for as a screening test almost, but you really want context and you want to look at it with the eye of a physician because sometimes it can mislead you unless you know what the context is of the data that you're looking.
Okay.
But, there's a lot of consumer devices. I'm sure you've heard of the Oura Ring or the Whoop or the Apple Watch has sleep detection features. And I have this love-hate relationship with it. It can give you remarkable fidelity for your sleep stages. You can see that you're waking up many times a night, for instance, or that you're not getting deep sleep like REM. The problem with these devices is the resolution. So some people, especially people who have certain variants of sleep apnea, they could be waking up many times, but a few minutes each. Imagine that you're having just a few minutes, you're waking up, or a few seconds of your heart rate jumping. These devices don't have the resolution to pick up these little micro events. And so they might be missing out on some very severe cases, which I've seen. But in general, I get a lot of good patients because it's sounded an alarm. So when it's a concerning result, it's helpful. When it's not concerning, it could be misleading. Could give you a false sense of security.
Interesting. So how about parents, people that have kids? Now, wouldn't that kind of mess up your sleep cycle? I mean, I don't have any kids, but I would assume.
It's funny you say that
it would.
because with me, I go to sleep late. I always feel like I'm just either like working later at night when the kids are sleeping, but I feel I'm tired. Even like right now, I mean, I went to sleep late, different circumstances last night, but I feel I'm tired. Recently, I went to the doctor, which I didn't really tell you what happened, but I keep going like this to my eyes, and I'm like, I feel like I'm tired. And honestly, even like right now, like I feel like sometimes I can just doze off. Now maybe I'm getting old. I'm becoming this old guy, but I feel like I'm tired. And I feel like I'm not getting enough sleep, but I'm also checking on the kids, or I wake up, or one kid comes to the bed, or putting one kid back to another bed. I feel like I'm not getting enough sleep. But recently, I've been doing this a lot, and I just feel like my eyes are causing a problem. Like I keep saying to people that I feel like if I had a reaction or I was allergic to a cat in a house, which I'm not, and then I feel like allergic reaction very heavy. So recently I went to one doctor. I went to an eye doctor. He does an eye test. And it just felt funny. It felt different than normal. And he's like, no, you're 20/20. You got good eyesight. And he at the end says, oh, maybe you need some reading glasses, whatever. But he's like, I'll see you back in a year. But I'm like, I still got a problem. Like, he gives me some drops. I use the drops. There's no problem. But again, I'm tired. I'm constantly going like this. I go to another doctor. I think it was yesterday. Ophthalmologist. My New York accent's killing it.
Is either ophthalmologist or
ophthalmologist, right? Mm-hmm. So I go to the ophthalmologist, where before was the optometrist.
Yes.
This guy basically was really good with the lenses and playing around, and he basically says, I need reading glasses. I'm like, are you sure? And he's changing all the lenses around. I'm like, I'm tired, I feel more tired. And basically he's like, yeah, you need reading glasses. And I can't believe it because one, I feel like I'm getting old now because I never had glasses. I can't even find sunglasses, right? You know how many times you have sunglasses and you lose them? Now he's saying I need reading glasses to read. But the problem is if you're always on your phone all day long, because basically I'm on my phone, text messages, emails, that means I need reading glasses all day long.
Right.
You wore glasses all the time.
Did you wear it?
No, so basically I did order a pair of glasses.
Oh, okay. We don't know yet if that's the diagnosis.
You get bifocals. You don't.
Well, they have the ones where you can wear. What is it? I don't know what it's called, Dianex or something, where like it's regular glass on top, and when you look down, it's a reading glass.
Yes.
But now I gotta wear glasses. Now it's different, right? You've been wearing glasses for how long?
Don't fight it, dude. Don't fight it. You're getting
I also feel like I'm
older.
getting old.
Yeah.
Since I was
I
like 6
came
years
out to
old.
Vegas 6.
Yeah.
So like if you're wearing glasses since you're 6, it's a common thing, right?
Yeah,
You just
you're
know
used
it.
to it.
But I'm actually kind of depressed if I need reading glasses. But I guess I'm tired because of the my eyes, right, are working harder to read, or I'm moving something away distance. But I definitely feel I'm more tired from it. Have you ever had something like that? Like if people ever said to you like,
Tired
I just
eyes?
feel tired. Yeah. What would that be from?
But,
Like,
but it wouldn't be sleep issues.
would you ever
though.
be like, oh, it's reading glasses, or maybe it is sleep issues? Maybe I'm not getting enough sleep.
Yeah, but I was thinking like
I
with
feel
the
tired. I'm always tired.
kids thing, you would have been programmed all these years already since you've had your kids to not sleep well because you're waking up, taking care of them
definitely
and stuff,
since I've
right?
had kids, I'm not sleeping because I'm checking and make sure they're breathing and they're jumping in the bed or something. But
You could
I'm
have
thinking
two
maybe
things
it's
going on at
both.
the same time. But some of the eye-related things that I see, there's this condition called floppy eyelid syndrome, where the eye loses its cohesiveness. I don't want to bore your audience, but there's also ocular migraines that people get if their oxygen tends to be on the low side, and they can cause like throbbing, especially behind the eyes. But just rubbing eyes from dryness and irritation and feeling tired, that just could be fatigue. It could be something going on with your sleep. The problem, these are the subtle clues that people get from their sleep. They're trying to pick it up. Some people get like this mysterious calf pain. They wake up with mysterious calf pain. Some people with like unusually dry mouth at night. And these are all like subtle clues that could mean that somebody's having something wrong at night. I can speculate about it, but that's my point, is like getting the objective data is where it's at. Some people, I've had a patient tell me like, I'm always a morning person. I wake up at 5:30, way before my alarm, and I'm full of energy, and I got my head full of steam. I'm a captain of industry, and I'm like, good for you, good. I do the sleep study, and they're like, their breathing is pushing them out of bed in the morning. Early morning is where the most problems occur because you tend to have more REM in the early morning, and REM is the worst stage for breathing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's not your alarm clock that's waking you up, and it's not your internal alarm clock. It's your fight or flight. You're waking up with a head full of steam because your heart's racing. We were gasping in the early morning. And, I had to show this guy, I have a lot of theories, but a lot of my patients are extremely successful. And I think part of it is that there's a certain level of hypervigilance. So people that are having their sympathetic nervous system, their fight or flight, is just ratcheted up all night long. They wake up with a head full of steam. They tend to be micromanagers. They tend to be really revved up during the day. And then they crash at like 3 or 4 p.m. Or they burn out at age 50, 60 because they've always lived their life, at high speed all the time.
Yeah.
So I've gone to very beautiful mansions, and these people have like extremely amazing resumes and pedigrees. And I'm like, would you trade that mentality and that personality type for like one night of great sleep? Like what do you look back with regret? Because I'll be honest with you, I look back with some regret because, I was an ICU doctor for over 10 plus years. And it's because it suited my personality type. I was always like very amped up all the time. I always had a low level of anxiety all the time. And it matched my personality. And then once I started to use CPAP, I just really mellowed out, and things don't really bother me that much.
Okay.
And I realized how much I was using anxiety to propel myself through the day.
I think with the ICU, I think it's more like when I was a police officer, you get like pumped up for the day. It's more of an excitement level, especially when when you're younger, when you get older, you have kids, married, or just older in general. Basically, like it dies down. Like even when I was a police officer, right? Like eventually, right? You're concerned that you want to live the next day, right? Like how much. Riding around with lights and sirens, that you may get into a car accident, right? You may get killed or something, But I think in the ICU, you're ginked up just like as a cop, or you're ginked up for that chase or for that pursuit, But I guess as you get older, things change in general.
That is an interesting justification of what you just said, though, because I have a few friends too that's like, oh, I'm a morning person, and I wake up like 4 or 5 a.m. I'm like, holy shit, but you don't look very good,
But the 5 a.m. club?
Yeah, but they're like, oh, yeah, I'm really active and I work out all the time and I'm ready to go. I'm like, yeah, but you look like double your age, So
it's literally 18 years. So people who have severe sleep apnea, for instance, the studies show that you're 18 years older than your biological age or your numerical age, basically. If you have untreated sleep apnea.
18 years older.
See, Dave, you look pretty bad for
looking
being
old.
30 years old, dude.
I don't even know how old you are. I have no clue.
I'm actually 48. I was thinking when he kept saying, because you always can make a complaint about dry mouth. And he mentioned dry mouth as well. So maybe that's
what do you mean I complain about dry mouth?
Hey, I got dry mouth today.
No, I don't.
You always say that to
When
me.
did I say that?
Is that because of sleep apnea?
Yeah, probably.
It can be.
Yeah.
You don't tell me. You always say I got dry mouth today.
What?
I mean, I didn't know why, but maybe now I know why. It's really
No.
up with the sleep issue.
I've never said that. I don't know where he just makes stuff up, Don't listen to him.
You guys know too much about each other.
No, he doesn't. He just likes to.
All right, so listen.
He just likes to find out.
You have an old story that you told to me a while back, and I want you to tell the story because I think it's a sleep issue.
Which one?
That you had. The one that you were in New York City when you were in Manhattan and you were sleeping. That story. I want you to share that story because my thought process, my assessment, now being with the good doctor, the sleep doctor of LA, is that I think you have a sleep problem. But tell them what happened in Manhattan.
It could be sleep apnea, but here's the thing. Okay, I was younger. I was in New York. Now, it never happened since then, but I had trouble going to sleep, but I was partying. I was younger. I was in a big city. But this is beyond just medical. I think it's more spiritual stuff, right? So I would get like compressed or suppressed, when I'm trying to take a nap, and I didn't want to take a nap because I was so scared about what was going to happen to me when I closed my eyes. And a lot of times it was dark energies kind of floating around, and I can kind of see it. And I would try to scream and yell, and I couldn't. So I researched it back then. This is 20 plus years ago, and I found about psychic vampires. So that's what I, related to. So, I mean, I'm sure it's some kind of sleep something, but I was getting... At
the start of the evening, like as you were falling asleep?
This is any time during the day during the day or night when I wanted to go to sleep. So I walked around like a walking dead in New York City because I was so afraid to go to sleep because things happened to me every single time I closed my eyes, I was being like compressed, like... I couldn't breathe, I couldn't scream, and it was weird. So I think it's more spiritual.
But you feel it was the location, or you feel maybe it was a sleep issue?
I don't think.
And if you had that problem, why didn't you move? If you
I
thought
did.
It was,
I finally did move.
You finally moved because you felt it was a spiritual issue.
Yes, absolutely. Remember, New York, it's a hub of a lot of weird activities, paranormal stuff. So, but I was also partying. Now, what my research was, these psychic vampires would feast on people that were weak. Your immune was weak, right? Partying, whatever. So I partied quite a bit. I mean, I'm 20-something years old. So I don't think it was sleep. I mean, obviously, it's medically you would associate it with that, but that's not. I don't think that was it. What do you think? Have you ever heard of those stories from any of your clients?
Not that in
patients?
particular, but I don't want to demystify the magical nature of sleep, and I'll give you an example of how it's magical. If I'm learning piano, there's something I can't figure out, and then I wake up the next day and suddenly my fingers can play it. Or I'm writing an essay and I don't know what I want to say, and then I wake up in the morning and it's like fully fleshed out in paragraph form. It's magical, the things that your brain is doing. And I think part of it is that our subconscious is really picking up a lot of things and putting things and processing things. And so this is the other aspect of my practice, which is, the cognitive, the psychological, and the psychosocial. I'm really fascinated about, being in touch with our subconscious, making friends with it, because it's the gatekeeper for becoming unconscious, which is what sleep is, being unconscious.
Right.
So if you don't have if you and your subconscious are not in good terms, it's hard to fall asleep. And so from what you're saying, first of all, physiologically, that transition between wake and REM, some people who are extremely deprived of sleep, they'll transition straight into REM. And like I said already, that REM is one of the hallmarks of it is that your body is flaccid. You just can't move any muscles, even if you tried. So some people who have heightened awareness during REM, especially if they're going straight from wake to REM because they're so sleep deprived, they might experience that transition very violently. They're seeing their dreams. It's a lot more vivid. Some people have like visual hallucinations that they can swear is happening right in front of them because their subconscious is transitioning to unconsciousness, and all of this imagery from REM is just pouring out. And I find that so amazing. My perspective on dreaming, and this is just my own anecdotal experience, but they do teach this. I treated a lot of people with bad nightmares in the VA when I was training. A lot of them had really negative imagery from combat and frontline traumas. And so a lot of the positive imagery tools that we give people to replace that negative imagery, if you do that during the day, if you start thinking a certain way during the day, it starts to impact your dreams. And so our subconscious and then in turn our unconscious really picks up on these emotionally impactful things and tries to process it and tries to make some kind of logic out of it.
Right.
And so it's very possible that something was weighing deep on your mind. You were sleep deprived, you transitioned quickly into REM, and your muscle tone was gone because you were entering REM very abruptly, I mean.
Right.
So those are things that fascinate me. And not to dismiss the spirituality of what you're saying, but there are messages that are in dreams that I do look for, and especially recurrent dreams, especially on the same subject matter.
It's great that you're professional the way you explain it, but when you're with certain people, someone like Gentil, you ever think to yourself, this girl's nuts. This girl's crazy because she's talking about, what would you call it? Psychic vampire?
That's what they're called.
Psychic vampires.
Psychic vampires.
In your career so far, with being the sleep doc in LA, maybe in LA they don't have the psychic vampires.
Yeah,
there.
they have plenty
of vampires. Have you ever heard someone
vampires.
say that?
What is your psychic vampire?
I think it's Gentil. I think Gentil is my new psychic vampire.
It represents something, and that's what I like to. I mean, this is neither here nor there. It's not a central point of my practice, but I do like to spend an hour with each patient and really talk about what is it that represents in you. What was happening to you at the time? What was your biggest fear? What's a vampire? It leeches off of you.
Something could have happened in her past where it's a traumatic experience.
Or it takes advantage of you, yeah.
Do you believe in people that have psychic powers? That's probably a no.
I don't believe in people that tap into a non-physical realm for information, but I feel like they're tapping into a whole host of things that are in our realm that are subtle cues. Okay. I really feel like we're flooded with a bunch of subtle cues that our mind is starting to pick up and trying to make sense of it. Okay. And to me, that is a spiritual process.
Okay.
Most of the dreams, they always say what happens right before you wake up, right? Is that, I don't know where I got that from.
Yeah, that's because REM is more heavy.
Deeper.
It's backloaded. You get most of it in the early morning.
So, and as much as I'm joking with Gentil, but would you say a lot of people talk about negative dreams or bad dreams because they're sleep deprivation? Is it common to hear about dreams, like bad dreams?
Like nightmares?
I mean, it's probably more likely that you're hearing about bad dreams than good dreams just because I guess the society we live in with anxiety of life and basically issues that happen to us on a daily basis. Like I know when I wake up, honestly, I'm always thinking about like work or business. What am I doing today? I mean, I'm constantly thinking about that more than anything. How to make my day productive, which probably, it basically causes a little bit of anxiety because I'm thinking, how do I make my day successful? And at the end of the day, right, I go through myself, well, what did I do today? Do I feel accomplished? So I do feel there's anxiety, which probably can cause sleep issues as well, right? It's stress. Anxiety
you know what it sounds a lot like? So less about dreams and more about racing thoughts. And racing thoughts are like the nightmares of your subconscious. So what do I mean by that? There are things that your subconscious is telling you all the time. And we need to take a break and listen to it. That's why meditation is so valuable. That's why journaling is so valuable. That's why I have patients that'll say they take a 15-minute shower and they think it's the hot water that's calming them and soothing them to go to bed. But it's really that they're in a place where there's no phone, there's no distraction, and they're just alone with their thoughts. Being in a place alone with your thoughts, the gym without blaring music that's distracting your internal monologue. Things like that, those are behaviors that people who are very, very successful do because it takes all of that anxiety out. It destigmatizes the process of going to bed because what happens is when you turn the light off and you're alone with your thoughts, they can be racing and running, and it could really hamper someone's ability to fall asleep. Same thing in the middle of the night when people wake up, they can wake up to racing thoughts. Right. And so this is what mindfulness is about. And I do talk about mindfulness with my patients because it's the process of getting in touch with what your subconscious is trying to tell you. I noticed that with myself. Like when I was in the ICU, I would see something like somebody dying and I'd want to process that. It was just so, it creates so much mental confusion and it's so potent emotionally. And then I didn't have time. I had to go to another dying patient. I had to go to another urgent matter. And I'll talk with celebrities and they'll have no personal space. They'll have to go from one issue to another issue. Or I talk to a 35 and younger crowd that goes from one podcast with their headset to another electronic device with YouTube. We should listen to this podcast, but that's neither here nor there. But they'll go from one distraction to another, and they're never alone with their internal thoughts. And there's so much that happens during the day, you don't even realize it. There's so many things that happen, and unless you're talking about it, either with yourself or with somebody that you trust, it's going to come out in different ways, in almost an excited way in the middle of your sleep. And that was a problem with me. I had to talk to people on a regular basis about the things that I was doing and seeing. How about yourself? Like I'm sure as a police officer, the things that you were seeing on a daily basis, if you don't express it to somebody, if you don't process it emotionally or take time to have a breather during your work, it will haunt you at night. It won't either let you fall asleep or it'll be a frequent subject of your nightmares, or when you do wake up, it'll make it hard for you to go back to bed.
What are all your bad deeds that's still haunting you, Dave?
It's true.
Apparently you're still stressed quite a bit. But, Doc, you're right. I actually started meditation, remember, after all the entities that I was experiencing and seeing. Deep meditation. And since then, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, and those are important things that you have to listen to. Sometimes it's for a good reason. I kind of imagine the subconscious as a backseat driver in a car. I mean, your consciousness feels like it's in control all the time, but there is always this nagging voice behind you that's saying, are we doing the right thing? What just happened? I just saw something that bothered me. It's almost like a child in the back seat that's saying, is this the right path? Are we doing the right thing? And of course, your conscious is like, well, I'm a grown, professional person. Why do I have to address all of these fears and insecurities? But in reality, for the health of your subconscious, and because sometimes the subconscious is right about some things. And that's where I am a little bit spiritual, where it's like, what is the subconscious picking up that your consciousness is blinded, either by arrogance, ego, from business sense, if something doesn't feel right, sometimes your subconscious is telling you those things.
Right.
And just drowning it out with the TV is not a good idea.
See, that all plays in together.
What do you
sleep, all the stuff that.
What do you recommend in regards to people say drink warm milk before you go to bed? What's the best thing to drink or not to drink correct? Or lactate milk.
Yeah, if you're lactose intolerant, you can't
What
drink that,
is
right?
there something not to do before you go to sleep so that you get better sleep? What should you take or what should you not take to get better sleep? I think that's the question.
Yeah, if someone sent me like an Andrew Huberman tweet because it was kind of along the lines of like how to warm your body to sleep properly or how to do, you just want to find basic comfort. The reason I don't want to diminish what you're asking, but the reason I'm kind of skittish about these questions because I see like big elephants in the room and people want to talk about the subtleties and the nuances of sleep. And, what your temperature is, for instance, in your room, it should be to your comfort. Mm-hmm. What you eat and how much you eat, it should be what you feel for yourself is appropriate. Some people, they have delayed gastric emptying. They eat too much before going to bed, and they feel bloated, and they feel horrible. Some people, they take too much carbs. They have too much energy. They can't fall asleep, or they have a crash because they metabolize the carbs so quickly. Everybody's different, and they should look at themselves and see what they're comfortable with, whether it's temperature or food or supplementation. Although I will tell you, magnesium is a good supplementation for spasm,
Yes.
muscle spasms, that type of thing. But other than that, there's just so much dysfunction in sleep that you can really pick up with objective testing that it really makes all of these things like a luxury item, like if you want to do milk or you want to do chamomile tea or you want to do this. It's not obligatory to do those things if your sleep health is right.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a police officer, people that worked the midnight shift and they would come home and it would be morning. I already forgot, but they were taking that supplement to sleep, which is melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
I think I tried it once or twice. Do you believe that works and is that bad? People that work a graveyard shift, that when they go home, they want to sleep, they take melatonin to sleep. Is that have bad effects in the future by taking
There's
it?
dependency, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't remember like fully working, but everyone would talk about it. A lot of graveyard officers.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a common question. Melatonin, people have to understand what melatonin is. Melatonin is a hormone, is a neurotransmitter that's released by the brain. It's a real thing, and it helps to regulate the sleep cycle. So it's not necessarily a sedative. It shifts the sleep schedule for somebody. And so that's number one. Number two, the melatonin that we take from a health supplement store, some of it gets absorbed. Mm-hmm. A small portion of that gets absorbed by the stomach into the body, and a small portion of that gets absorbed into the brain. And then last but not least, the brain is only susceptible to melatonin at certain hours of the day. So certain times you give it, it's not going to do very much. So when I use melatonin, it's to shift somebody's sleep schedule gradually over. So, we tend to be more susceptible to melatonin at dusk. Mm-hmm. If you give somebody melatonin at dusk, it'll make them tired earlier. Mm-hmm. It'll shift their sleep schedule earlier. And then if you're trying to make it more palatable to be a night shift worker, you can gradually shift them into an inverted sleep schedule. So you're basically putting somebody in a different time zone. Mm-hmm. I actually like that for a night shift worker because the problem are the people that are constantly flipping their schedule back and forth from day to night to day. That's what's very damaging and harmful for the body. And night shift workers, they have a reduced life expectancy. They have a higher incidence of cancer, and we don't even totally understand why that is. So there's something about, constantly flipping the switch, whereas if you gently ease them into a different time zone, it could be more palatable for them.
They say as a police officer, most cops, when they work like 20 years, that most of them die within 5 years after they retire. Wow. The question is why. Now, years ago, I think that when the study was done, was that back in the day with NYPD officers, they would work like 1 week day shift, 1 swing shift, 2 weeks graveyard, back to day shift. The schedule kept on changing. And I think that maybe that's what changed in regards to, I guess, creating problems. But normally it was like 5-year life expectancy after they retire. Now, even though there's a lot of stress with the job and maybe that their officers are more ginged up over 20 years and they lose that high or anxiety that kept them going, maybe that's what it is in general. But, most times they say officers don't live that long after. That's what's actually, I thought was good with me is I retired early because of medical reasons. But I felt it was probably better to transition to a second career that's more like normal hours. And most of my career was normal day shifts. I kind of pushed that way doing community policing. I did work a little bit of graveyard and swing shift, which I really didn't, in the beginning was kind of cool, but eventually it wasn't like a normal life that you'd want. During 9/11, I worked a bunch of graveyard shifts as well, but I do feel that there's definitely health issues with that schedule. It's just not normal to basically work a graveyard shift. I mean, you work crazy hours in ICU as well. I think it definitely causes problems, but
yeah. How about doctors that have weird hours? I mean,
yeah, that was the last straw for me because I just couldn't maintain it.
Okay.
Waking up so many times a night, and then past 3 a.m. if there's an emergency, will I be inebriated by fatigue?
Right.
Will I be able to make life and death decisions in a timely manner? And that was a big fear of mine. And it's a lot to ask of somebody, but at the same time, you need 24/7 representation in the hospital, just like you need 24/7 police representation. How did I deal with it? Not well. I mean, there's really no good way. You need to have a process. You need to force yourself to sleep before a night shift. And that's one of the hardest things to do, because if your body is trained to sleep at a certain sleep schedule, to flip it is very difficult. The people who do night shifts, almost exclusively night shifts in the hospital, they tend to make it their thing. They're the night shift person. They do it for many months at a time, oftentimes, and they seem to do great with it. Okay. They like the increased pay, and they have great daytime schedule that they've mapped out for themselves. They've made it work for themselves because they own that schedule. The hard thing is flipping. The flipping can be very, very taxing on the body.
So being disciplined.
How does it work now? Now you're more, can you explain, more of a concierge doctor? How does it work in regards to, like, if I basically have insurance, are you more private these days, or can you accept regular insurance, or is it more private pay?
The cost?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's unusual about my situation is that I'm not an insurance-based practice. And if you look at sleep doctors, you'll go to your primary doctor. They'll say, well, breathing at night is a life and death matter. You could be aging yourself. You could be your heart failure, your frequent hospitalizations could be due to your breathing at night. And make an appointment with a sleep doctor. And then they'll say, okay, the sleep doctor will see you in 3 months. And then, okay, after that, you see them. The sleep test will be in 3 months after that. Oh, you have sleep apnea? Okay, we'll give you a generic device 3 months after that. So it's like a 9-month process. You don't even remember when you get the machine that what your initial concern was. Nobody explains how to use the device. And so I'm not a businessman per se. I wanted to be a pure doctor, growing up. I wasn't thinking about insurance and not insurance, but I realized that you can't provide the service with the way healthcare is structured right now. In order to provide the service, where I meet somebody, I diagnose them with horrific things at night, and then within 2 days after meeting them, I'm like running to their house with a CPAP machine that's a high-end device with demo masks that they can try out, and then strong opinions about different just get them ready for that night. I even bring the distilled water for the humidifier, everything that they need that night. Just start ASAP.
How much does that cost?
It's around $600 to go to someone's home. Okay. I spend a full hour with them, and so anytime I'm at their house, it's about that, and about $400 for a sleep study. So those are the types of costs. I read the study myself. I do everything myself. Okay. So that level of by the way, that That's first hour, I read things. These are the things that I wanted to do as a doctor in any field, is understand someone's motivations, understand what their fears are, what their personality is, and then from that first hour visit, customize the plan and approach with the kind of words that I used for motivation. I'll go to someone's house, I'll see I had one patient with an autistic son, and this father just wants to stay awake long enough to tuck him into bed every night. You know what I mean? This is the kind of person, a lot of my patients, they've had sleep problems, they've have learned helplessness, they don't care about their own health necessarily, but when you talk about the well-being of their kids and what they have to live for, it makes it such a better doctor-patient relationship to know these things about them, to actually step foot in their house and to really get a sense of who they are. And I think that's been really almost, use the word spiritual. I think that's definitely spiritual.
That's great. Love that. Okay.
I was
Affordable. Very affordable.
I was actually thinking that's a good commercial where it's like you're sleeping and the phone rings. Like, is this a sleep doctor? And they're like, I can't sleep. Like, I'm coming over. Like, gets in the car.
That's happened to me.
And then he has the, what is it, CPAP? What do you call it?
CPAP.
CPAP.
PAP, yeah.
CPAP device. He's like running over, and then the guy's up, and then he puts the device on it.
He always has ideas for a commercial.
And then he basically drives home. It's like, Sleep Doc, LA. That's how it goes. I think it's a good
interesting.
one.
There you go.
You want to go to sleep? You call the sleep
there
doctor.
There you go, Doc. Your next commercial.
I was laughing because you were saying what a study is. I forgot what I was going to say. I was trying to make a joke here, but you kept saying that you have a lot of people that can study you. It's during your sleep. You always have that problem. People always want to come over and study your sleep.
Right. Everybody just wants to come over and study.
Most people want to pay you $600.
Oh, yeah.
They want to give you money for that.
Can you give me a list of those guys? Or those people?
I'm sure we can make money for that.
Dude, I'm trying to make some money here. You haven't made me any money yet.
So, she's sleeping too long anyway. She's sleeping like 24 hours.
Yeah, how do you make money if you're sleeping half the day?
I only work 2-3 hours a day. It's perfect for me.
The other thing you just came up with, which I'm laughing about, is that before this ends, we have to see if the domain is available of Psychic Vampire, because that is the brand that you should be with. Like it should be like a scripture, like Psychic Vampire.
Dude, it's a real thing. Look it up.
We're gonna have to look it up. Psychic
Vampire, yeah.
But this is the first time, right? So now he's more educated about the psychic vampires in Las Vegas. So when he goes back to LA, he could fight the other psychic vampires in Los Angeles.
In LA.
So this is a message to any listeners and viewers that if you have any psychic vampires in your neighborhood, contact the Sleep Doc LA. He will fight them. He's going to fight them for you, Jonty.
Can I ask you about the psychic vampire? I'm going to interview you for a second.
Sure.
What do they drain you? They overwhelm you?
So apparently psychic vampires are entities that are not alive, but they haven't gone on to the next phase in life. They're still lingering on this plane. You know, they're usually ghosts or whatever you want to call them. And they would feed on, but they're the negative spirit. They're not the positive ones, right? They're the ones that are still here for, a lot of reasons that they don't want to go yet, trauma, murder, stuff like that. So apparently they just linger. And then if you are at a really low state in life, or you don't have the spiritual level, or the strength and the power to fight them, they latch
prey on you.
Exactly. So they zap your energy and whatever they do. That's what was happening to me. That's why I was walking like a walking dead, because my energy was being zapped every single time I try to go to sleep. Literally, like I was like, zzz, zzz. I'm like, what the heck, So it was really scary. Yeah.
Well, now I know.
They even rape you and stuff like that too. And there's a lot of instances of women or people talking about this situation after doing research. So it's a lot.
We have to end in a few minutes because I have to bring her back to the mental health ward, and she's only out for 3 hours.
She wakes up, her neck is bleeding.
It's a long time ago, yeah.
That's
but it's still memorable though. It's so long ago, but it's just part of. It was very traumatic. Seriously.
You never heard this before. I'm going to do some research.
People don't talk about that because it's weird. Let's see how you guys are looking at me like I'm a weirdo.
Is it a Cambodian thing?
No, it's not a Cambodian thing. It's a lot of everyone here, all over the world.
Is there like an app you can go? You can just see what the psychic vampires are?
Well, yeah. I'm sure there's some group that you can talk to.
We'll have to research that.
Before. No, seriously.
It is interesting, though, in general, that people have different dreams. And
that's why I'm a believer, because the dreams that you have that are fueled by certain pathology, if it's breathing or something like that, it feels otherworldly. It feels like out of body.
Yeah.
It's so dramatic. By the way, here's some interesting things. Like primates in general, or animals in general, what percentage of their sleep is REM? And why do we have REM? Because like I said, there's a spiritual element.
Yeah.
REM, you're visualizing things that are outside of you, outside of your body. You're perceiving yourself from a third-person perspective oftentimes. It does something to the mind.
Astroplaning. Do you believe in that? Do you believe the spirit leaves the body?
I'm happy to get a pamphlet on that afterwards.
So you don't believe in ghosts either, correct?
No. I mean, if any place would be haunted, it would be an ICU. And I've been in hospitals all day and all night.
Yeah, well, that's because you're not receptive to it, supposedly. That's why you don't
Maybe.
see it. But yeah, there's plenty of ghosts walking around in the hospitals for sure.
But there is something really profound that happens during the sleep. And by the way, I have patients who don't get any REM, and if you talk to them, it's like talking to when you talk about ghosts. Like they seem like ghosts themselves. They're like going through the motion. It feels like their soul is something is off about them.
Right.
If you're not getting REM, it seems to add a certain level of depth to someone's personality, and I don't know what REM, and I literally mean we don't know. There are some things that people say about REM, about like consolidation of memory, about cleansing the lymphatics of the brain and improving certain mental characteristics about emotional processing. But ultimately, we still don't really know exactly why REM exists and why the patients that I see that don't have REM feel like there's something dead inside. You know, and to be able to give that back to somebody is like it is a spiritual tool to give. That's why, like you talk about a mask, CPAP, it's weird, it's Darth Vader, it's gross or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you are tapping into some spiritual things that when you restore REM into somebody, you bring back something
Vitality,
ineffable. I can't even put
Yeah.
my finger on it. What it's doing to people.
You do believe in the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and do you believe that the soul and the body is two separate things?
I do actually from my ICU end of life experiences.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So now the soul would translate as a ghost, because remember, the soul leaves the body, right? Once they pass away. And so don't you think they call that a ghost?
Yeah.
Possible? Okay.
During the transformation of going from here to heaven,
Yeah.
it becomes a ghost form
Right, exactly. But remember, some of that soul also lingers.
for a while before.
For whatever reason
Not
they
that we
need to
really know.
linger, to give you a code to the safe or
There's something
you know,
about a human
something.
being that you can't measure. Mm-hmm. There's something that we can't study. I had somebody in the ICU who was near the end of his life. He was having a massive bleed. He was intubated. He was put on life support and sedated. Mm-hmm. And the next day when he was doing better, he described everything that happened in the room while he was unconscious.
Right.
He remembers what the anesthesiologist was saying, what she was wearing, and he described it as if he was sitting on top of the TV in the corner of the ceiling of the hospital room.
Floated up. Ooh, just got chills.
Yeah, I got chills, and that's not unusual, by the way.
Yes.
And also, the end of life story is also very consistent. The tunnel of light, feeling secure, feeling safe. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a positive experience when people have a near-death experience, when they're not conscious, but when they're experiencing the feeling of dying, where that soul that you're describing is leaving the body. Mm-hmm. And that's why I believe. I mean, I've always had some agnosticism about what really happens to somebody. I think as a scientist, you should be agnostic about these things. There's clearly something that is intangible that resides within all of us. Yeah. And I think sleep medicine as a profession, you kind of tap into these intangibles and you kind of...
you do.
Play around with it a little bit.
One last question before we wrap up, which is kind of real interesting to mention this, is when you're dying and you're about to see this light, you being a doctor, that you can bring someone back, should you allow that person to really pass away and go into the light by you using your intervention by being a doctor and bringing them back? Should that be done in your eyes?
It's still up to the soul, though. In my opinion, the soul
could go.
Yeah,
but
when
if they're
ready,
leaving,
they're ready.
and then your doctor is intervening with going to heaven,
right?
Why should we stop that?
Yeah.
I guess that
Yeah, that's what my wife said when my wife was giving birth with one of our children. She got so much opiates that she briefly stopped breathing, and she had that experience of like she didn't want to be woken up. She was saying this to me, like, let me go into the light. Like she was saying all of those things. It really depends on circumstance, but most of the time people don't want to go into the light at this moment. They have things to live for. They have things that are not finished. The things that are reversible in the ICU, you have a duty to reverse because people don't want that. people would be filled with regret if they I mean, who would have regret in heaven? I don't know, or wherever you go. But in the sense of appropriateness of heroic measures, I think it's case by case dependent.
Interesting.
Dependent thing.
Well, that was an interesting question. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the Problem Solver. As usual, the goal is to solve some problems and talk about different problems that people have, like psychic vampires and sleep deprivation. My eye situation with glasses now. If anyone has that problem, maybe it's reading glasses. Next time you see me, I'll be having glasses on.
Yeah.
So maybe you look better with glasses.
I will, 1,000%.
So I appreciate your thoughts and your insight on this issue. If someone wants to contact you or look you up, what's the best way of doing it?
You can just go to sleepdocla.com.
SleepDocLA. So it's Alex Hakim, Dr. Alex Hakim. Again, I appreciate it. SleepDocLA. If anybody needs some help in regards to sleeping, psychic vampires, and other mysterious things that are out there in Los Angeles or in Las Vegas, please contact Dr. Hakim. And again, I appreciate you coming on the show. And Janti, as usual, thank you so much for being the problem solver as well. Together, we're solving problems here.
Many, many, many problems.
Many problems.
Yes.
So anyway, thank you so much. And looking forward to having you come back on the podcast in the future.
Thanks for having me.